years back during the Lok Sabha elections, BJP was on a high, especially in West Bengal, because they had won 18 Lok Sabha seats. Unprecedented, and of course, who would have thought it? West Bengal politics has largely been between the Trinamool Congress and the left in recent times. And where has the BJP come in from? But there have been some fast-paced developments, and recently the tiger of Barrackpore, Arjun Singh, one of the most strongest critics of Mamata Banerjee, did a ghar wapsi and went back to a TMC. Is it tough times ahead for the BJP? Was the BJP's 18-seat target, which they got in the last Lok Sabha elections, just a flash in the pan? I'm Pallavi Ghosh, and on One Take this week I'm asking this question: is what lies ahead for the party? But before we discuss what really lies ahead for the BJP, we also have to understand what really the BJP got in West Bengal. How come they managed to win those 18 seats? Look, anyone who has followed the political history of West Bengal, it's largely been between the Congress party and the left. And when the Congress disintegrated, it's the Trinamool Congress which made a massive inroads. In fact, the Trinamool Congress was a splinter from the Congress. TMC's style of working, their leadership was very much akin to that of the Congress party. Mamata Banerjee herself, in fact, left the Congress to join and form the Trinamool Congress. She also understood over time that if she has to win West Bengal after 2 unsuccessful attempts, she would actually have to become like her biggest opponent and enemy, which is of course the left parties. Many of the cadre voters of the left the left to join the Trinamool Congress. And today the critics of the Trinamool Congress say that the TMC is no different from what the left was. The same hooliganism on the streets, the same kind of a cadre movement, and complete lack of tolerance as far as dissent goes. This is not what I am saying, this is what the critics of the Trinamool Congress, particularly the BJP, is saying. The last state elections was certainly a huge challenge for Mamata Banerjee, and it showed, because she lost also from Nandigram, which has really been her battleground, and she lost it to one of her closest aides, Shuvendu Adhikari, who actually nurtured Nandigram for her. And I would say that was one of the most embarrassing moments really for Mamata Banerjee as far as the West Bengal elections goes. It was also a do or die battle for her, because she began by underestimating the might of the BJP, and then she realized on the way that the BJP was no pushover. It's a party very much in the reckoning. From what was traditionally a TMC versus left fight with a little bit of Congress being there, it now ended up becoming a BJP versus Trinamool Congress fight. And that's when she realized that she would have to do something about it. And what did she do? First of all, she hired the services of a political strategist, which is Prashant Kishore. Now, someone like Mamata Banerjee, shrewd politician, who has given a lesson or two to the Congress party in politics and political strategy, why should she need the support of a political strategist like Prashant Kishore? But he taught her many things. He taught her master strategy. He also taught her where to remain silent, not to get drawn into this whole narrative of Hindu versus Muslim or Ram versus Durga. It paid for the Trinamool Congress in the last state elections, because she came back with even a larger number of seats. Of course, the loss in Nandigram is something which is always going to haunt her. The credit, of course, also goes to Mamata Banerjee, who with her fractured foot decided to fight back and also use that as a USP of the TMC against the BJP. But if you think the BJP is going to be like, say, the Congress party and not go back to where they've lost, certainly not. Why I'm saying about the Congress? Because this has been one of the biggest criticism of the Congress party, that in a state where you may have been in power or control at one point of time, once you start losing, you give up. One doesn't have to look too far. The criticism against Rahul Gandhi is that after he lost Amethi, he's gone back there only twice or thrice. A mistake which the BJP does not make. In fact, just after the electoral results came back, the BJP leadership kept going back to Bengal, whether it was a BJP president, JP Nadda, whether it's the Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, who incidentally was one of the face of the BJP during the Bengal polls. They went back. They decided to brazen it out. Why? Because their eye is now on the 2024 elections. But the BJP knows that perhaps it may not be able to get those 18, but they don't want the numbers to come down remarkably. Look, in 2024, there's going to be an anti-incumbency possibly against the BJP in many of the states where they've done well. So what their strategy is to do well in those states where they don't have much of a presence, like the southern states, and therefore they're also concentrating on the south, Kerala, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and so on. But they're also concentrating on those states where they did surprisingly well the last time around, but the BJP doesn't want to see this as a flash in the pan. Unfortunately, there seems to be a spanner in the works as far as the BJP goes. So you have one leader after another leaving the BJP, couple of MLAs left to go back to the Trinamool Congress. You have the MPs also leaving the BJP to join by the TMC, and the peg why we are discussing this, of course, is the most recent one of Arjun Singh, Member of Parliament from Barrackpore, who defeated the sitting tiger of Barrackpore at one point of time, Demolished, who was with the Trinamool Congress and one of the closest aides of Mamata Banerjee at one point of time. The irony is that the same former Barrackpore MP, Demolished, is now with the BJP. Arjun Singh goes back to the Trinamool Congress. It's not that the BJP doesn't want to stop or didn't want to stop Arjun Singh. There were many stops given to him. He had many rounds of meetings with the BJP President JP Nadda. He was also given a top post in the organization structure. But then, as a setback, on a Sunday evening, you had Arjun Singh holding press conferences and saying that why he was unhappy with the BJP. Now, I met Arjun Singh during the West Bengal elections. Very firebrand, very aggressive, very scathing in his attack on Mamata Banerjee, and in fact, he also promised to the BJP top brass that in the Barrackpore area, he is going to ensure that the Trinamool Congress is almost wiped out. Didn't happen that completely, but certainly the BJP put up a very strong fight. What does the exit of an Arjun Singh show? It shows that the TMC is almost invincible, and also that the BJP's foundation in the state somewhat seems to be shaky. Now, if a leader has been given so many hearings by the top brass of the BJP, offered a good organizational post, yet decides to do a ghar wapsi, it also sends out a signal to many of those BJP MPs that we can also perhaps walk over. We perhaps may not have a future in the politics of West Bengal in the 2024 elections, which is again not too far away. Babul Supriyo gone, you have of course now Arjun Singh gone, you have a Mukul Roy also. All of them slowly have gone back to the TMC, and therefore that question mark is always going to be there on the other BJP MPs. Does this mean that the Bengal dream for BJP is over? Well, if you know what the BJP is all about, certainly not. They're waiting for that one chance for Mamata Banerjee and the Trinamool Congress to slip. And what their hope is that the governance card, the governance angle, to show the Trinamool Congress as poor in governance, poor in law and order, which is why they keep on talking about political violence, could then become the USP or the electoral card for the BJP. Because as we all know, the factors which go into voting for state elections are very different as far as the Lok Sabha elections are concerned. Do watch the space. Plenty going to be happening in Bengal. Thank you so much for watching.